Hello, everybody. Welcome to Silicon Valley Health Institute. I'm Robert Minky-Miller. I've been a board member here for about 3 years now, roughly. Time flies, so it might even be 4. And Silicon Valley Health Institute has been around, 20, 25 years now. So how many first-time visitors? Wow, fantastic. Welcome. Yep, hope to see you back again. And if you're not familiar with our website, we have all of our videos recorded from years back with tons of optimum health information that we hope will help you maintain healthy levels throughout your life to 100, 120, 180. That's Dave Asprey's goal, so. All right, so we're a membership-driven organization, a 501c3 nonprofit. So we work and keep the doors open by your donations and membership. The membership's $60 a year or $10 at the door. So a little bit of savings if you sign up for a year. If you have a cell phone, please silence your cell phones. And if you're concerned with EMFs, go ahead and turn them off. If you have an emergency call, please take it outside so you don't interrupt the continuity of the speaker. The locations, little logistics, the locations of the restrooms are down this hallway here and to the left and down about 100 yards or so on the right. A little bit of exercise for you. We'll go, and we usually open with the forum. So we open the floor to questions. We have some practitioners here that can answer some questions and give you some feedback on anything that you might be working on or any questions you have, or if you want to share any cutting-edge technology with us, we're always open and look forward to hear it. We start off with announcements. Anybody have any announcements of different events and things in the community?
For the last several years, I've been doing a self-care meetup at my house on the third Sunday of every month. And I've now added a new meetup that deals with biohacking as its fundamental purpose. So, biohacking. Speak to me at the break if you'd like to know.
So for those of you who don't know, that's Steve Fowkes. He's our technical director here. He's a chemist, biochemist, and has a wealth of knowledge and information and been in the health, optimal health arena for a long time. So I highly recommend it. Did you tell them how to get a hold of it? Meetup? Okay. All right. Sounds good. All right. So any other announcements? Community health information? No? Okay. All right. So the floor is open. Anybody have any questions? And also, if we have questions around the speaker, or make sure that we get the microphone to you before you speak, because we're recording it on video, so we want to make sure that you're heard and that everybody can hear your questions after the forum here. So any questions around health? Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. I saw that ashwagandha is being used as one of the ingredients. Could somebody talk to us a little more about ashwagandha and its properties and nutrients and advantages, benefits?
So, Kitty, I'm guessing that you'll probably bring that up a little bit in the talk, but if you want to mention it briefly.
Actually, there's so much about spices, I didn't even have a chance to add the adaptogenic herbs. But ashwagandha is one of the most revered herbs in Ayurvedic medicine. It's known as an adaptogen because it helps your body adapt to all kinds of stresses, whether it's mental, emotional, physical. It's called an anabolic adaptogen. It builds your systems. It helps balance cortisol if it's too high or if it's too low. And adaptogens in general are reasonably rare plants, and they work in this non-specific way of what's too high, it helps lower, and what's too low, it helps raise. It's really good for stress reduction and memory, focus. It's been tested with children for helping their memory and focus. It's very safe. You can take it every day. It's a wonderful herb.
Boost immunity too. A couple other adaptogenics are rhodiola rosea and ginseng, but yeah, it's a phenomenal thing of nature that adaptogenics do. So, other questions?
Yes, I had once seen a video showing or saying something like you shouldn't have a root canal if you need a root canal in your, with regards to your teeth. So I was wondering if that, how correct that is, or if anybody has thoughts on that.
Okay.
There is a book out by a dentist. I think he is from Ohio. And the book is Tooth Truth. And you can get it at libraries or tell them to get it. It's awesome. He said he used to do root canal and crowns, no more, because they just kill your teeth.
It's good advice. And certainly in the United States, where the dentists fill the tooth with gutta percha, which leaves the tubules in the tooth that go from the core area where the nerve is residing out to the outer surface of the tooth. That's how the tooth is surveilled by the immune system. White blood cells can come up through the root and go out through the tubules to the surface of the tooth and clear any infections that you might have inside your tooth. But when you fill the core of the tooth with the root canal, all of those tubules become potentially infected. And there are anaerobic infections that can live in those tubules that can emit neurotoxic compounds that can then move from your teeth into your gums and into your brain. And estimates of the rate of root canals going bad are anywhere from 50% to 95%, depending upon who you talk to. So I think the people who actually study this agree that it's a pretty serious problem. And once the tooth is root canaled and becomes infected, we don't have the technology for clearing out that infection. There is a German-developed root canal procedure where instead of using gutta percha, they use a slurry of calcium oxide. It's like a cement, but it's in a liquid form and it's fluid enough to penetrate down into the tubules. But whether or not it fills them all the way or not, and how that's done, there's still some argument that this is not 100% safe.
It's to Steve. What about implants instead?
Well, that's the alternative to, or a bridge. You know, sacrifice the surface of the tooth on either side and do a bridge. Or if it's the back tooth, or the, you know, then you can't do a bridge. You have to do an implant. And implants have their own health consequences relating to, for example, being made out of metal, for example, and being conductive when a normal tooth is not. Yes, zirconium or titanium or some other alloy, and they're all conductive. If it's a metal, they're conductive. Yes, it is. Yeah. Well, it could be a ceramic material, but as far as I know, those are not used and they're brittle. But I may have a poor understanding of some of the new technology. I don't look at this very often, but you know, this dates back to Kennedy in the 30, 40 years ago when he was doing research on this, and Boyd Haley's group at the University of Kentucky, who were taking teeth that were extracted because the dentists and practitioners thought that they were causing people's health problems. So the teeth that were pulled, they would send them to the University of Kentucky to be analyzed for their ability to suppress microtubule formation, which is a part of the brain that malfunctions in Alzheimer's disease. And so they would put the tooth into water and then add the water to one of the compounds that makes microtubules and see the degree to which it becomes inhibited. And they found that's where the 50% to 95% inhibition came from, is that kind of research. So, that doesn't mean that a tooth is always infected. And so a lot of teeth that were pulled that weren't problematic, but it was a pretty high percentage, depending upon what dentist was doing the extractions. I know that one of the dentists that used to operate in this area was probably 20 years ago, who was out in the valley and near Stockton or Lodi or someplace like that, used to evaluate his patients for their gum sensitivity as a potential indicator of a bad root canal. So he would do pressure on the gums on the outside of every tooth and on the inside of every tooth, and then he would look at where there was abnormal sensitivity and see if that was next to a root canal. And if it was, then he would hypothesize that that root canal was bad.
Curious, is there any way to know for sure of an infection behind the tooth? Because it's usually a doctor or dentist making a determination that there's infection in the root where you need a root canal. Is that right?
That's a separate kind of issue relating to cavitations, pockets in the tissues of the gums that can become infected. If you pull out a tooth and you don't take out the membrane that surrounds the tooth that inhibits the gum growth, then you can end up with a pocket. When the tissue heals on the top, you can end up with a pocket that can get infected. And people also will have gingivitis and other kinds of conditions where infections will travel down between the teeth and the gums and develop a pocket down deep. Infrared light helps with that. Ozone too, if you can find a practitioner who will do that. So that's one of the things that you can do after the fact. But when you're working with ozone, it's a problem breathing it. So if you're putting it in your mouth, you have to be very, very careful if you're self-administering ozone that you don't breathe it.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay.
Just to follow up on what you said about ashwagandha, what is the dosage, and is that the preferred adaptogen versus the rhodiola or the ginseng? And are there other things you should take with it to make sure it works?
So it depends on whether you're taking the whole root or an extract. The whole root you would take between 3 and 6 grams a day, which is kind of a lot, few teaspoons. And extracts, the one I use is called KSM 66, a 300 to 600 milligram dose a day. It's backed by 13 clinical studies for stress and muscle building and memory and focus and sexual function in both men and women, and just a whole array of health benefits. And they extrapolated, because it's a 10-to-1 extract, that 600 milligrams is their clinical dosage for all their research. And you can mix it with other adaptogens. It's really good with shatavari for women's issues. It's great with rhodiola. You don't need to. But the more, if you have a blend of adaptogens, you're just getting potentially a more powerful cocktail. And we blend it with Eleuthero, which is also called Siberian ginseng. We just like to have several herbal components working together. But it doesn't need any bioavailability enhancers.
More questions?
About the root canal, Howard Hagen, he had a book called Root Canal Cover Up. and smoking tooth.
I think there's some videos online along those lines.
I wanted to say something about the teeth. I stopped eating potatoes and rice or pasta with my dinner. And after some time, I don't need to have my teeth cleaned anymore. Although I would go once a year, and she would say every time, when did you go the last time? But one time I didn't go to the dentist for like 3 or 5 years. And she said, when did you go last time? Have your teeth cleaned? And I said, I don't even remember. And she said, your teeth are clean. And now for the past 10 years, I just brush them once a day with a natural toothpaste and a little bit of charcoal. That's it. And about a year ago, she said, you know something, don't come back anymore.
Very nice. Repeat the items again.
Would I brush my teeth with?
No, pasta.
Oh, it is a Tom's natural toothpaste.
No. What items aren't you eating?
The starches, potatoes, pasta, and rice.
Okay, thanks. Okay.
I have read about rosemary oil and lemongrass oil. I have read that it can reduce cholesterol. Can you explain the rationale or the mechanism of action, how these essential oils can do?
Well, they're very complex chemicals, and they have a lot of different mechanisms of action in the body. I'm very cautious about using any essential oil internally, unless it's just maybe a drop and it's mixed in food. I don't really know about the essential oils so much, but they do have many. Spices actually help with cholesterol and diet.
Steve, would you like to make a comment on cholesterol?
The whole focus, medical focus on cholesterol is a scientific mistake that was compounded, it was developed in the 60s and 70s and compounded by politics and science and a lot of kind of unscientific behavior on the part of various people who were promoting the idea that cholesterol caused heart disease. And it's now recognized that the effect of cholesterol is quite trivial and that driving cholesterol down has an adverse effect of making your risks for dementias go up. So they're talking about a set point for cholesterol of maybe 180 or something like that for a cardiovascular system. And now they're saying that, you know, if you're elderly, you want to have a cholesterol above 200 and maybe as high as 240. So the whole idea that suppressing cholesterol is a good idea, I think, is more politics than it is competent health advice. Cholesterol serves a series of really important purposes. One, of course, is that it's the starting material for making all the steroids and corticosteroids and mineral corticoids in the entire body. Second, it is the component of the membranes throughout our entire body that inhibits permeability of membranes. So you have the fatty acids that encourage permeability and the cholesterol that discourages permeability, and the body has a preference for the balance between those two to regulate the function of membranes and the stability of membranes. And so messing with that by taking high amounts of polyunsaturated fatty acids or suppressing one's cholesterol may serve a therapeutic purpose, but on some level it's destabilizing your potential health and wellness.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to go back to the root canal issue and ask if there's any blood tests or other tests to determine whether you have those neurotoxins that get created if a root canal goes bad, and whether there's any imaging technologies for your mouth that can see that the root canal is bad.
There is no imaging technology. So in order to judge whether a root canal is bad, you have to be able to collect a sample from the tissue or the fluids that are surrounding the tooth, that are up against the tooth. And there was a test that was developed by Boyd Haley and colleagues at the University of Kentucky, where you would insert a piece of paper, filter paper, into the space and absorb fluid and then send it to a lab, and they would run it through that same test that they would do. But it was never approved, and they didn't develop enough data to get it validated, and so the test isn't commercially available. But it might be available on the side if you present yourself as a researcher, so that you have the test done for research purposes rather than medical purposes and diagnostic purposes. The test might be available. You might check with, the name Boyd Haley, Haley, and I believe they tried to do at least a startup based on this technology. It turns out that the University of Kentucky collaborated with the University of Calgary to examine the effect of mercury on sulfhydryl enzyme systems, and basically came up with a mechanism of Alzheimer's disease. So it's not just bacterial toxins that are released from root canal teeth that adversely affect the brain. The brain can actually have enough mercury in it that's natural mercury, that's just in everybody. But if you lose control of that mercury by having your glutathione system fail, then all of that mercury that's bound to glutathione and relatively safe gets kicked off of the glutathione and then can then poison your brain. So the idea that a bad root canal can give you Alzheimer's disease, my guess is that it's probably less than 1% of Alzheimer's disease, and that most Alzheimer's disease is caused by an energy failure that adversely affects glutathione, and that the number one cause of that would be insulin resistance, where people overeat carbohydrates as a lifestyle factor, and so their cells aren't burning fat as an alternative, and then that carb abuse ends up interfering with glucose uptake by insulin, and so the cells brown out. They lose their energy because they're carb restricted and the carb system is impaired. So anybody with Alzheimer's disease might be served by doing some kind of a carb restriction program to reverse insulin resistance and open up fat-burning pathways and see if their brain responds positively to it.
Okay, we need to close the questions off here. Let's see. One quick announcement. We are looking for another board member, and if you're interested, let me know, and we could talk about it at break. We'll have a break about 10 to 9, 5 to 9, somewhere around then.